Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your seat.
Good evening and welcome to the Speedway Tavern. This thing that you see on my face, that's called a smile. I haven't had one for a while, but I have after watching the Brummies versus Bellevue last night. I'd just like to say a big up to the Bellevue fans that made their trip down there and were magnanimous in their defeat yesterday. Lemo not quite so much, perhaps. I'd also just like to mention TNT, who made an appearance at Perry Bar last night. TNT or BSN? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that tonight, but I think BSN are absolutely smashing it. Only in Speedway. Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Speedway Tavern.
Good evening.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Chris.
Good evening.
Because he's being rude. Wasn't going to say hello. So
can't do two things at once.
No, you can't do one thing at once. What are you talking about?
Can you just say there was 7 erms in that intro?
7 erms. Is that a new world record?
It's getting close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tied with Calvin Tatum at the moment.
Yes. Undoubtedly. Okay. Let's have a look at the comments. There we go. I'd love to actually, before I do that, I really would be interested to know what people are making of the TNT coverage. I'm imagining that those of you that are paid, that I don't know how much it is to go and watch the GPs on the weekend, are not very happy.
No, it's I've not been impressed with it, to be honest. I've only seen a handful of meetings, but less than impressed. I've got to say, I think Bears, as you said, I think BSN should be very proud of what they've done, because I think their coverage is absolutely straight ahead on a much lesser budget than TNT, if we've got access to this,
Absolutely, yeah. Got a few comments coming up on the shout box. Pete Clark says, "Good evening, I'm thinking of growing a moustache." Pete, you need to think about growing hair.
Not inwards.
No. Andrew Garner says, "Hello." Rich Thomas, somebody called Chris Browne, I don't know who that is. Clive Woodier.
Good looking chap.
Clive Woodier says, "Scott Nichols is good on TNT, be better on BSN."
Scott Nichols has done well, to be fair, as in his broadcasting career, that it's obviously sort of built over period of time that he's done it. I think he's got better at it. I thought when he started doing it, he was maybe a little bit stiff and didn't really want to be controversial, but I think he's sort of come out of his shell a bit more now. I mean, obviously we had him on the show during lockdown, didn't we? And he was great value.
Great value, absolutely. Rich Thomas says, good win for Brummies. Track was awful, very few decent passes. Very few decent races, I should say. I've got my own thoughts on that. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I thought the first 9 heats, really it was the score line that, the fact that it was so close kept it interesting, because I was quite bored, to be honest, with the first 9 races. What turned the meeting really was Jepsen Jensen, Jonas Jepsen, sorry, I'm going to always get them two mixed up, because one's considering one's not there now. Jonas Jepsen's move on Zach Cook, that obviously had a bit of an argy-bargy early on in that race as well, and I think you could tell from Zach Cook's reaction on the slowdown that, but he wasn't overly impressed with the.
Somebody told me he did produce a single digit. I didn't see that, so I don't know whether that's true.
Ryan did say on the tannoy that Zach just acknowledging Jonas Jepsen there. I think it was acknowledging him to a certain extent. Yeah, definitely. But
I'm having watched that on the replay. I actually don't think Jonas Jepsen did anything wrong.
Hard ride.
It was a hard ride, but also he did catch a rut which sent him across. Yeah. And actually probably did quite well to stay on the bike. I love Zagar's remark. I'd love to hear Zmarzlik's remark. Zagar's remark, apparently, when he watched it, was 10 out of 10 to Zach Cook for staying on his bike. 10 points for staying on his bike is what he said. But,
yeah, I have to say, considering he only got 6 points last night, but he rode a lot better than that. His efforts certainly deserved a lot more. I thought, we haven't discussed this, we've been discussing the meeting before we started, but I think the match winner for Birmingham last night was Jason Edwards. I thought he was terrific.
He was good,
Paid 12 points from reserve.
That's not bad going.
That was the big difference, really. Was at reserve. Tate Ziski, it was obviously a really horrible crash that he had in his first one. I think you could see from his reaction, leaning against the fence, it did sort of shake him up a little bit. He's not long back, of course, from that really serious crash that he had at Bellevue last season. Jake Mulford, I thought, was disappointing. He had one race win, which I think certainly a lot of people around me, that sort of underwhelmed a lot of people, because they're thinking, well, Jake Mulford shouldn't really be coming here and winning races. But they only got 4 points from their reserves, and Birmingham got 14 and 4 bonus. Yeah, that was the big difference, really.
I want to say something about the track, because I have got my own thoughts on it. I don't think it was as bad as people were making out. It wasn't the best track in the world, but I just see the track getting better every week. I just feel like there was a lot more dirt on it last night. They did rip up the outside a little bit as well.
Yeah, we are going through a very dry spell of weather as well. Yeah, and we've had a dry winter, of course, so
we're not having the same sort of problems that they appear to be having at Leicester. Haven't experienced it myself, but everybody is saying it's a hell of a dust bowl at the moment.
So, like Rye House used to be, I think so.
On YouTube, regarding TNT, Ben Cresswell said, I've only watched it for the GP so far. Didn't notice a difference, but haven't seen a Premiership fixture yet. John Hope says, GP and Brummies last night was crap. Don't hold back.
It keeps freezing. I think he's talking about the coverage.
Yeah. And Ben went to Kingsley last night for the first away match this season.
Okay, we'll probably come on to the results that went on yesterday. So, but then by the same token, as you say, with the much less of a budget, but probably with a lot more knowledge.
Yeah.
BSN, I think, are doing a wonderful job. I know they have had some teething problems with, I think, probably the demand as much as anything. But, yeah, I think better value for money, maybe.
Yep. And certainly with, as things stand now, Speedway in the West Midlands next season, I think, there's going to be a few people in this area who might be, taking up their offer of a season ticket to watch. Because you get to watch all the teams, then, don't you? It's not just all based in the Premiership either. You get to watch Championship as well.
Exactly. Simon Corbett, what a terrible GP. Gate won most of the night. Zmarzlik deserved winner. I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
I haven't been able to see any. I've managed to see the race.
Yeah,
the final, and that seemed okay as finals go.
Boring, the GP, but it's never been a great racetrack. I don't think Prague. It's obviously stayed on the calendar because it's a popular venue.
Yeah.
But it's never been. I don't think racing has ever been the strong point of that venue. And to be honest, the GPs at the moment are just I think even in Poland, but the impression you get in Poland now is that there's interest waning in the GPs because it's lost that unpredictability because everybody knows that Smarsdick is going to win the World Championship. It's not a slight on Bartosz Smarsdick because he can only beat what's in front of him.
Of course.
But when you hear people comparing him to Tony Rickardsson, well, that's fair enough, but Rickardsson was having to beat people like Crump and Nielsen and Billy Hamill and Hancock. Smarsdick's really only had one rider, and that's Laguta, and of course he's not in it now. And, there's just not a strong enough challenge to him, so it's no criticism of Smarsdick because he can only beat the riders that are in front of him at the time.
Is it time to start going back to a one-off world final? Would that bring the interest back? That old chestnut.
Yeah, I think it's. I know a lot of there's always going to be a massive debate about GPs and world finals. You can see it. You can sort of make cases for both of them, I think. But I think the bottom line is the world final. It was great at one time, but it was losing a lot of its edge. I think towards the end, it was sort of going to place. It was going to places like Pocking in Germany, and of course Norden. Of course, it went to Norden, didn't it? For that.
Where was that?
In West Germany.
What was it? Pocking.
Yes,
Okay.
I did say that.
That was close.
Yeah. Pocking, yeah, or poking, as some people used to call it. I don't know why, but I think the sponsorship and things like that were all dropping, so that was really why they bought the GPs in. And the GP's prime really was probably about 10, 15 years ago, and it's suffering at the moment. Hopefully, the next two Grand Prix, of course, are going to be, crackers. It depends on what they do with the track. I would imagine Messrs Kurtz and Bewley are looking forward to because they're going to have a hell of an advantage at Bellevue, and it's not this track. It's not always a track that Smarsdick has done that well on when he's ridden there. So
no, last time he rode there in the Speedway Nations, he wasn't the best, was he?
No. Okay. I've got to be honest. To be fair, if I was a Polish rider, I wouldn't be too keen on team riding with Bartosz Smarsdick. To be fair, because he's just,
Yeah, because he can move that bike wherever he wants to.
But
in an instant,
It depends on who's in. Even doesn't matter who's in the way, is it? So.
No. Simon Corbett says Kurt's situation last night. Explain, Chris.
What?
I was.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was obviously kept a little bit in the dark, wasn't there? And there's a few people.
I mean, there's been lots of suppositions made that could be right. I don't know. I'm not in the know for that. But the accusation, if you like, that's been levelled at mostly at Birmingham, because it would presumably favour Birmingham, is that he wasn't told until late on to get more bums on seats in the Birmingham Stadium.
Mm.
That didn't work.
It wasn't a bad crowd. It wasn't
the worst crowd.
No, but it's been better than some of the crowds have been. But it's still nowhere near enough to make to sort of get to the break even. I think 1,000 is the quoted break even that the promotion have looked at.
I don't know what the truth of that situation is, but it comes back to that phrase that I say every week, only in Speedway.
Mm-hmm. You didn't say it. You didn't say it in your intro this time.
Yes, I did. Oh, did you? You wasn't listening.
No, I don't. Well, I don't tend to listen anyway. So
that's true.
I've heard it all before. So
every week.
Every week, yeah. Rich Thomas says it's like watching at Reading in the Jan Anderson days, blue grooves after 5 races. I don't think there was a blue groove after 5 races.
Yeah, there was a blue groove at the end of the meeting.
There was definitely a blue groove at the end of the meeting, but I didn't say
it. I could see you admiring it on the first corner, so
maybe. Pete Clark says, "Put your teeth in, Mike." Okay, I think that's an instruction to you, Chris.
No, I'm pretty sure he was aimed at you.
There's a few more here. Okay, we'll just go through these. Craig Smee says Birmingham's reserves looked good last night. You've just mentioned that Jason Edwards in particular and Jonas Jeppesen I think he turned the match, as you said. You can see Bellevue's weak link, and you usually need at least one high-scoring reserve to be successful in the sport, especially if you go so top-heavy like the Aces have. Zagar is a class act. Loved him at Bellevue. See more. And was ultra-professional, sort of. Great with the fans as well. Brummie's lucky to have him. I mean, he was... his interview on TNT, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It was quite funny. There's been a lot of comments about it.
He rode very well last night.
He rode great, didn't he?
You know, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, he might not be quite the rider that he was 5 or 6 years ago, but he can still...
He knows his way around the track.
He's still a very, very dangerous opponent to have. So
he knows his way. He knows where to put the back wheel and you know, the important things. I mean, he was great yesterday. And deserved Rider of the Night, I thought.
Yeah.
Neil Skippy Matthews ventured to Kent on Sunday, and what an experience that was. Over 3.5 hours to run the meeting. Tractor and water burser were out more than the bikes.
3.5 hours.
This is another big problem that Speedo's got, is the length of time. I mean, to be last night dragged, but it always drags because it was on the TV.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
when Birmingham run a Speedway meeting, they usually get through it pretty quick, don't they? But you could feel the gaps yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want it to be like when Frank Empton was refereeing, when meetings were over in 5 minutes, but because everybody wanted to get home. But yeah.
Jim Torrell says, only watched a handful of meetings on BSN, but I think they are much better than TNT, who seem so disjointed. I think disjointed is a good word. Yeah. Anthony Bailey says, Bend 2, there is nothing there out wide. Hasn't been for a long time. Bend 4 seems to have a bit more out wide. All I can tell you is I flag marshal on Bend 2, and there's plenty of dirt out there. I know, because I had to bloody pull it all back last night.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention about last night as well. Had Birmingham lost that meeting, I would have certainly questioned Chris Adams' decision to put Tobias Muesliken as the rider replacement in the first heat. Because if you look at Mueslik's record when he was at number 1, he always starts with a bad ride, doesn't he?
And he did again.
Yeah, I thought that was questionable. He probably got away with it a little bit because I suppose it was influenced by the fact that Keenan Rue wasn't anywhere near fully fit, because he may well have got the first ride, but it was a bit of a mistake, I thought. But Birmingham got away with it.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a bit.
He needs to do better at that, Toby. His first ride is always whoops.
He seems to be one of these riders that needs to watch a couple of races first, and then needs to know what the track's like rather than just going out cold. Yeah,
Jason Lyons used to be a little bit like that. Never liked.
Jason Lyons didn't like riding at number 1. Number 1, no. So,
and we'll open this discussion as well. So going back into the 70s and 80s. Where you put your heat leaders was up to you as the team manager. You wasn't told you've got to put your number 1 at number 1.
Sometimes you put them at number 2, couldn't you?
Well, I think you used to have to put them at 1, 3 or 5, your top 3 riders. But which way around you did that, and 9 times out of 10, your best rider, I mean, Phil Hearn always used to ride at number 5. Hans Nielsen always used to ride at number 5. Very often you'd put your best rider at number 5. Your sort of third heat leader you'd put at number 3, generally speaking, where he would be backed up with a strong your best second string, so that would be like an engine room situation. And you would change it around a little bit going to away meetings depending on the form of riders at a particular track and all of that. And all of that is being taken out, and that's tactical situations that you as a supporter can have a discussion about, why has he done this, why has he done that, why has he brought him at number 3, for goodness. All of that creates interest. It also creates more for the team manager to have to think about and have to deal with.
That's it.
And so we had rider replacement for Japson Jensen. It's an awful place to have rider replacement at number 1. If you can move if you can say, well, I'll put him on at number 1 at number 3. Then you create, it's, as I say, it's much more for the team manager to think about. So I would love to bring that back where you can move those riders around a little bit more.
From a Wolves perspective, I remember there was quite a period of time when obviously we had Samuel Malenko was our top rider, and he rode a number 4
Right.
for nearly half a season. You know, number 4 isn't a heat leader position, but
No. So I would like. I think that would be a great idea personally, but I'd love to know what other people think about that. Nicky Skippy Matthews says there's Blue Groove at Kent after 3 heats and the dust was awful, and this is the problem the whole of Speedway's having at the moment. That's an interesting photo you put up there, Chris.
Thank you.
that's obviously Tate Zisk's crash, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So very lucky boy. Not for anybody. He's the worst possible place to come off, isn't it? Just coming out that first corner,
on the very first lap as well, when everybody's there.
Right with you, so.
Yeah, I mean, they did. I mean, you're looking at these pictures now, and they did really well to go around the outside of him.
Yeah. You get when you see someone come off like that on the first corner, you always get flashbacks of Eric Gunnarsson's accident at Bradford, don't you? Which was just a case of being it was an innocuous, just locked up slightly, but in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Chris Thorogood says, evening chaps, TNT is fine, no difference to Eurosport, but was Eurosport fine? Calvin is lovable, but not the best commentator. BSN outstanding. Ian Brennan is great, and Rory Schlein is also a favourite. Yeah, I just like BSN better.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the lack of adverts.
I think the big thing with Calvin Tate is his self-confessed maths problem is a bit of a handicap. I think it's it shouldn't be too difficult to work out if he's 6 points behind going into the last 8, then a 5-1 is not going to win you the meeting.
Pete Clark says TNT are held back by having to show adverts every 4 heats, but where BSN just follow the usual club meeting.
If you get it on the Discovery app, you get the adverts out, which is what I do. So
they carry on broadcasting.
Yeah, they just carry on. Yeah, so you still get the commentary and things like that.
Because presumably you're paying for that app,
yeah,
are you?
That's right.
On YouTube, Duncan Pemberton says the problem with the GP series this year is there should be 4 LCQ, so all 16 and do whatever they want, but get a chance to win the GP. Yes, I'm being sarcastic.
You're being I don't understand that.
The last chance qualifier, which was previously the semi-final.
Right.
Obviously, you've got 2 of those now, but only the winner goes through into the final.
Yeah,
the top 2 scorers.
Yeah, how can 10th still have a chance? He says that.
Well, it makes the last chance qualifiers. I'm not going to call them LCQ because that seems to be a bit of an American way of saying it, isn't it? So,
what does LCQ stand for?
Last chance qualifier is just literally just said it.
Sorry.
Yeah, pay attention.
I'm not as clever as like what you are.
Yeah. What I do like about the last chance qualifier is the fact that you have to win the race. Being second isn't enough. So there is a little bit more.
Does it create more of a race though? Because if you're right at the back, you go, oh well, that's it.
That's the one problem. Isn't it?
Whereas if you can get second place, there's still to qualify. There's still a chance.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just hope we get when it gets to Bellevue that we do get some great racing, because I think the GP needs it, because the first one in Croatia was average. Warsaw wasn't great. And Prague was diabolical. I thought it was a dreadful meeting.
So TNT. So I've got a few ideas coming off the back of what Craig Smee is about to say. So TNT has a bigger reach, but is on the expensive side if you are just buying it for Speedway. However, it isn't too bad for value if you watch all the sport they show, like Speedway, MotoGP, football, etc. BSN is superb and great value for money, and the production is on par with huge companies like Sky and TNT. But the problem is only the Speedway supporters are buying the BSN stream and doesn't have the reach as TNT to a wider audience.
I think there is a lot in that, to be fair. So if you're not a Speedway fan, you're not going to go and buy a BSN pass, are you, if you don't know anything about it?
The best way of doing it is to get TNT to take on BSN and stream BSNs, and you get best of both worlds.
That wouldn't be a bad idea, wouldn't it?
You get the best of both worlds that way. Fred Graham says, I can agree BSN is a wonderful value. As mentioned by Matt, you get to see all Premiership and Championship teams.
Yeah.
They should be taking adverts out in places like the MotoGPs and things like that. Mm-hmm. Whether they can afford to do that is another matter. Elliot Hunt, old friend of the show, close meeting to watch with Birmingham taking the win in the final heat. Our reserve squad paid 18 compared to Bellevue only getting paid 4 from Mulford with the surprise heat win in Heat 8. Crowd was definitely lower as the raffle amount was down. Okay, it was nice to see a few Edinburgh fans to support Paco and some Bellevue and Wolverhampton fans too. And Paco is that sort of a guy. I mean, there was a lot of moaning on the Birmingham Speed, and I'm really sorry that we're concentrating on Birmingham a little bit, but given what...
It's not very often the Birmingham win a meeting.
Exactly, there you go. He's that sort of guy, isn't he? He does attract people, and I remember on the Birmingham forum, there was a lot of moaning about, why have we signed him?
He's done better than I thought he would. I thought he'd do well at home, although he wasn't, up until the last couple of races, he wasn't great.
Possibly won the match for us at Leicester, or part of that. And we should mention we've got a win away at home.
Back-to-back wins.
Yeah, we're on a run now.
Yeah.
Until tomorrow, when we're at Bellevue.
Yeah.
But hey-ho. Okay, Kurtz has been named to ride number 1 for Roclaw on Friday, so he can't have had a concussion. I'd heard that
I don't know whether he came off in Rochlaw on Sunday. I know he had a big off in the GP, so...
I'd heard that he was actually unconscious for a little bit, but I don't, again... You know what the Speedway track's like. It's full of rumours and whispers and stuff.
Chinese whispers.
Matt, I thought the same regarding Toby taking the RR, but Paco was in 3 of the RR races, I think, so hands a little tied on reflection.
I think they were to an extent, but...
Because of Keane and Rue,
I think if Rue had been fit, he probably would have got the nod for the first stage, but I certainly wouldn't. I'd certainly be very wary about putting Mueslick in the first stage, because his record, as I say, his record in the first stages for Birmingham is pretty awful.
Awful.
He'd be an 11-point man if he took the first 8 out.
He probably would be, yeah. Owen Wiley, Kent Meet was slow mainly due to medical emergencies. We need to support these events. Is run almost by, I presume you mean volunteers, essentially. Yeah. Phil Taylor says, what a great result for Leicester last night. I thought they may win that meeting, but not by as many as they did.
18-point win, wasn't it? So I think, Leicester would have been angry by that defeat against Birmingham last week, so I think they needed to bounce back, and they certainly did that.
Rich Thomas said in those days, number 3 rode with the reserves. That's true.
Yeah, they did when I started. It was number 3. Number 3 was there.
Bewley has moved up to number 1 and tends to struggle in Heat 1. Kurtz is a much better rider at number 1 in Heat 1, but the averages determine who is number 1 and 5 now. And there it is. Tactically, you should be able to put your... I mean, I don't like using the football analogy because they're such different sports, but you don't start the season with your best rider, your best player having to go in goals. You know what I mean? Being told that he's got to go in goal, and your best striker is in the centre back. I'm just using the terms that I can remember from football. I don't know many. And maybe your goalkeeper out wide in midfield.
Square pegs in round holes.
Yeah, you don't do that. You should be able to say, right, this is the team I've got. That rider would be better there. Yeah. That rider would be better there. I think the balance of the team is better there. And then you've got all the supporters going, what the hell's he done that for? That's rubbish. I would have done this. Yeah. Like you do in football matches, you do all the time, don't you? Mm-hmm. You discuss, like, this is a stupid England team. I wouldn't have picked that. Whatever it is. Uh-huh.
It's interesting we're talking about Dan Bewley there, because watching him last night, Bellevue fans probably aren't going to like me for saying this, but I wonder whether Dan Bewley would be
I know what you're going to say,
to have a season away from Bellevue, because I think he's so dialed into that place because it's all raw power, and last night, when he was out in front, nobody was getting anywhere near him.
No,
but he does seem to be all just raw speed, doesn't he? So, he's a terrific rider. I like him as a rider.
The thing with Bellevue is you can build momentum up, and his power to weight ratio is better than most riders because he's a light little thing.
But you can't do that at every single track.
Yeah, because if somebody is clever enough to halt your momentum. You've got to build it up again.
Yeah, you can't go to Leicester and ride it like Bellevue. It's completely different.
Or Ipswich.
No, so that's. Okay. I think it's. You know, I don't think he would go anywhere else other than Bellevue, but I think it would do him a power of good to have a season at another track and maybe just learn something a little bit different.
Well, it's what Crumpy said, wasn't it? One of the reasons he went to Bellevue, the old Bellevue, with that tight, horrible track that they used to have, was because you work out how to ride that track.
Yeah.
You haven't got to worry about it, and you can concentrate on your GPs, and you can come with. So it's not necessarily going to the best track, is it?
Yeah.
It's going to a track. And being able to ride a tight track like that.
I mean, is it any coincidence that Nicky Pedersen's peak years came when he was riding for Eastbourne, which wasn't exactly a huge track, was it?
No.
Pokey little place, really.
Yeah. But Duncan Pemberton off to Workington. I'm needing to get some more teeth.
No, you do. Getting worse.
I'm off to the dentist tomorrow, so hopefully that will work out. Off to Workington on Saturday. Any Works fans here who can tell me if they have got any water pipe to the stadium yet? Well, God, I hope so. Fantastic little stadium and track, but no running water in 2025 isn't good.
Not really.
Went in 2024. Okay, I did not know that. Peter Oakes, Nicky Skippy Batty says Peter Oakes would put Ivan Major at number 2 sometimes in away meetings for Exeter.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
It just adds a whole new element of...
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Tactical awareness, and you turn up and you look at your programme and you think, oh, well, why the hell's he done that?
Yep.
That's stupid. What do you and
but then at the end of the night when you're celebrating in a way, when you think, oh, that's why you did
that.
Yeah.
Or you're going, I told him, I said you shouldn't have done that. That was stupid. You know. Dave Twine says, isn't it different rules in certain countries? Had this in the past, have we not?
Oh, that's about Kurtz, obviously.
Yeah, about riding for Rocklaw. I don't. Is there different rules in different countries as far as
I'm aware? Yeah, there shouldn't be. If it's regarding a head injury, it should be standard. Surely.
Yeah.
A quick shout out to Skippy for the donations. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fred Graham, as you know, I bang on about the great Scottish derbies. The racing at Armadale was good on Friday, however the crowd was not as good as expected. I'm wondering if this is due to both teams meeting each other for the 5th time in 2 months.
I was thinking about that the other day, because when I was going through the predictions, I thought, they seem to be racing each other every single week, don't they? I mean... I think there was an element of this, I think, really with Wolves Cradley at a point where there were a lot of challenge matches that were put together purely because they were, you knew
they were money grabbing.
They were money grabbing because you were going to get huge crowds for them. So, so that's. I don't think it helps. So possibly it doesn't help either that they race on the same night as well. So, but but. Maybe next year, obviously with no Birmingham, maybe possibly do a.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I'm trying to.
Well, no meetings in the West Midlands, obviously. So maybe maybe an opportunity to go and do some meetings up in Scotland. So,
don't forget your rider of the week.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dave Twine said, "Fred, is there a proper fixture secretary?" There you go. I don't know. And Dave Twine's given Edwards as the rider of the week. I'd love to see what Chris Thorogood's got to say, but currently he's hidden.
By new comments.
There we go. Am I right in thinking Birmingham's 14-day facility for MJJ has expired? If so, how are they allowed to run RR, and what's the point of a facility apart from it's allowing a guest at full value. A couple of things.
It's been extended, hasn't it? So
it has. There's a couple of things to unpick there. It has been extended. We applied for an extension and we got it. I presume it's just for another 14 days. I mean, it is something that needs to be sorted out. Okay. I mean, I always do.
Stop you messing around with it, I think.
What's the point of a facility apart from it allowing a guest at full value? But there was only one team that we could have chosen from yesterday to get a guest from, which was Oxford. I think most of their team are abroad. So how do you get... This is a problem. How do you get a guest in that situation? So, yeah, I think that's answered all those questions, as far as I'm aware, anyway. Chris, 2 extra weeks allowed, suddenly, I read yesterday. Okay. Phil Taylor, Victory Parlavara, or however you pronounce it, for Rider of the Week, has been racking up double-figure scores all season for them. I think his lowest tally was at Plymouth when... Matt was down.
He wasn't great at Plymouth, I must admit. I know it's obviously a
tricky track,
a very much smaller track than he probably is used to. But I've seen. I mean, I wonder whether a club in the top flight might take a punt on him. To be fair, because he has been getting some really, really good scores for Onyx.
A lot of people have mentioned that, and I guess a lot of that will depend on whether he wants to.
Yeah,
because I think he rides in a few leagues, doesn't he?
Yeah, that might be a problem. So,
Pete Clark says the atmosphere in the pits between the Birmingham riders has improved since Paco arrived. I think you could see that.
Well, one thing you could say about that Birmingham team last night is that there's no shortage of team spirit, and you could see that there was a genuine delight amongst the riders with the wheelies that they came doing afterwards. That they managed to get that.
Some really superb wheelies, by the way. Yeah. Some impressive ones. If you could pick the riding order, would the reserve races in Heat 2 especially still be protected? Of course, yeah. Your reserves would be at reserve.
Yep.
That's always been the case. Your reserves would be at 6 and 7.
Yep.
It's the main body of the team that I think you should have a lot more control over.
Yeah.
I don't understand the mentality of it. I suppose the one thing is it's about Heat 13, having your best riders out in Heat 13.
Yeah.
But you're still going to see your best riders. You might not see 1 and 5 versus 1 and 5 in one race, but that's what Heat 15's for, isn't it?
Heat 15 is for, theoretically, the best riders in the meeting.
So I just think it just adds. It doesn't take away. I think it adds. To be able to, particularly, you've got situations where you've got top heavy teams versus teams that are sort of stable all the way through. How do you manage that? Each team manager, well, I've got this top, where do I want my best riders to be? How do I want my riders to be spaced out, because they're all pretty steady. And that's like a mind game then between the two team managers as well. And it's a tactical thing about, well, he usually does that. Oh, shit, he hasn't done that this week. He's done that. I just think it adds to it. Dan can come to Kings Lynn, would be a hero, says Barry Young. It's a similar sort of track there. It's
not quite as fast.
Not quite as big, but yeah. So Chris Thorogood said it's based on averages who can go in what order. I'm sure the middle order at Ipswich can be swapped around as they're all a similar average. But your number one and your number one in the averages and your number 2 in the averages have to go at 1 and 5.
Yep.
That's where they're prescribed to go. Why? What is it's wrong. It's what I'm saying now. That should be changed. Brian Book says Paco is posting higher scores for Birmingham than he is for Edinburgh. Several of the Edinburgh fans who were at Perry Bar last evening commented on this.
He wasn't great at Plymouth, to be honest with you, when I was down there either, so it's probably not his sort of track though.
I remember the first time that Paco arrived at Eastbourne. Yeah. Top scored. Yeah. So he can ride small tracks.
You couldn't get smaller than that place, could you, sir?
No. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm told Plymouth is. I've never been. You've been. How equal is it?
Eastbourne's got longer straights than Plymouth has, I think. So.
Okay. Somebody told me that there's not enough room on the back straight to spell Plymouth out. I don't know whether that's true. Didn't Ipswich use RR for Doyle last night at 2? I don't know.
Whether they did, actually.
We will have a look at that, but if they did, it will have been based on the averages. Fred Graham, Rider of the Week, give my vote to Jody Scott and his debut for Redcar and scoring 6+3 against Oxford. Great to see new young British talent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right, I'm going to go one more Birmingham thing,
right?
If I may.
Okay.
I'd like people's opinions. So I'm not going to read this all out. What Nigel Tolley's comments last night. I'm just going to give you an overall view of. He was talking about it being a massive shock to announce that we're ending, and its intention to make it to the end of the season, and that they have been looking for a new home for Brummies for some time. He's saying his enthusiasm is being damped because of the poor attendances we're getting. I mean, you've got to say the poor attendances have got to come from the results a little bit. As you know, he's got to take some responsibility.
When you're losing virtually every week,
by a loss,
yeah,
you've got to take some responsibility for that. And he goes on about how much money he's putting into the club and so on, which is a loss.
Yep.
And he's talking about he desperately wants to see Speedway continue in the West Midlands. So is he opening some sort of door there for possibly finding a new home? Has he got something in mind? It was a very mixed message, I thought.
We know that there's a lot of rumours flying around about other clubs in this area. Not just in this area, but of course around the country as well. The Speedway world at the moment seems to be awash with them. Rumours at the moment. It seems more awash with rumours than it does with tracks at the moment, unfortunately. But hopefully that's something that might change.
Watch this space. But what I would say is he seems to be tying it to the number of people that comes through the gate.
Yeah.
So if there are any Birmingham supporters out there that have not been turning up this year, and I understand it. I mean, I've been a bit down. You can't help it, really, with the results that have been coming. Yeah. So I understand that, but this might be your last chance to see your team.
Birmingham.
Yeah, this might be. Hopefully it isn't, but if you want it to not be, that's one of the ways that you can possibly help. That is by turning up.
Yeah.
And I do understand, people that say, yeah, but I want to be entertained and we're getting beaten. I understand it. I do understand it, but if you possibly can bring yourself to come. I mean, last night, passing wasn't the best, but there was passing. Mm-hmm. But the match was exciting because of the close score, and I think we're going to get a few of those this year now. So,
yeah. I think the struggles of the last few years really sort of thing. That's what makes meetings like last night all the more special, doesn't it? So, because it's not very often since Nigel Tolley's been. I mean, not even before Nigel. This has been when the Masons were there as well. It's not always gone right at Birmingham, but it's one of those things that when it does go right, you think, oh, that's nice. So,
big rumours is Cradley's return.
There are lots of rumours.
There are lots of rumours. We've got nothing concrete, yes, but there are lots of
stuff flying around at the moment about that. None of which I can confirm or deny. So, but it's possibly sounding hopeful.
Yeah,
we'll say that.
Yeah. So, someone to go to watch Speedway if that's the case, then. Albeit cheering for the opposition, of course.
Of course, yeah, and probably my point of view as well.
Would you go, Cradley, if Brummie's?
Ask me near the time, possibly. Yeah. Possibly, I might even end up working there on the track. But
we're going to get you fitted out for your green and white jumper.
That's the problem. I would have to wear red underneath. I'd have to. But that's what sport is about, isn't it? That's what it's all about. So I'd love to know what people think about that. As I say, and the other thing I was going to say, if your team is coming to Birmingham, if you possibly can, come and support your team at Birmingham. It will help us out tremendously and make for a great atmosphere, and you just might never get the chance again. So
that's it.
That would be,
Yeah.
Craig Smith, Coventry apparently have some good news to announce in the very near future, according to rumours.
There does seem to be a bit of momentum building with Coventry at the moment. Again, like you've said with Cradley, there's rumours that I've heard, can't confirm them or deny them, but they've put a lot of. I mean, we've had Jeff Davis on the show, and I know from talking to Jeff Hammond, I mean, that's pretty much like a full-time job now for Jeff. But I've always said, if anybody can get that place running again, they will. I think they've put a huge amount of work in, and nearly 10 years down the line, and the place is still there. It's a credit to them, and I just hope that that would be such a huge lift for the sport if it can get Speedo back into Coventry and back into Brandon, because it is an iconic venue. It probably won't be the Brandon of old because of the fact that the two main stand, certainly the main grandstand there now, surely must be pretty close to being condemned because it's in really poor condition now.
Well, I just feel that Speedway isn't the stadium. Speedway's what's out in front of you, the bikes and the track. That's Speedway, and needs a rethink in this country. Tracks and fields, I keep saying it. Yep. A lot of people saying I'm wrong about riders. Apparently, riders second to fifth riders can ride in any position according to the rule book.
It's only the top rider. I think the top rider can ride the.
I'm surprised there isn't more variation in things.
Top rider has to be at number one, but I think the two lowest riders have to be at reserve, but the other ones you can put anywhere you want. So.
I think you should be able to put them all where you want.
Yeah,
personally. But
I'll put Matty Zygar at reserve then.
Well, within the body of the team, as I mentioned before. Oh dear, Matt's getting facetious. It's catching.
Hey, it's Mark Maron from WTF here to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I'm sure the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because you chose it. Well, choose Progressive's Name Your Price tool, and you could find insurance options that fit your budget, so you can pick the best one for your situation. Who doesn't like choice? Try it at Progressive.com. And now, some legal info. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
Nick Skippy Matthews says I'm coming to Birmingham on the 23rd of June with Plymouth for the National League meeting.
Catch up with you, Nick.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was going to meet him a couple of weeks ago down there. So
give me a wave on the first bend.
Like that?
Yeah. That's one finger too many. Somebody says I went down to Cradley for nearly the whole season in 1973 and I was a Brummie fan then, watching 2 matches a week. Great. And I'll tell you who it was if Chris lets me say. There we go.
Dave Twine, I think it is.
Dave Twine. There you go. Thank you. Jeff Daniels, the Bates family selling Sheffield. Toller rumoured to be interested in buying Sheffield. That's not one of the rumours I've heard.
It's one rumour I've heard.
Is it? Okay, interesting.
Because I know he's mates with Peter Mole, isn't he?
He is.
So
he is.
I'm guessing that's Tony Moles.
So. Nah, they're not related.
No relative at all.
Wow.
They just go in the same holes. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
I'm not going to do it again.
Waving that flag around.
And Pete Clark says, Nick, I'm going to Plymouth on the 24th. There you go. Mm-hmm. It's a long old journey down there.
I think we need to move on. We've got 12 minutes left.
Yeah, indeed,
Good gosh. We should say well done to Bartek Marslik.
Yeah, we will discuss the Grand Prix, obviously, after we do the prediction.
Can I have my pen back, please?
Have a think about your Rider of the Week as well.
I'm just about to say that.
Okay. I'll just put the tables up as well quickly.
I'm going to say Jonas Jepperson, by the way, for my Rider of the Week.
Okay, so...
I'm taking into account the Leicester match as well.
Well, I'm going to go for Jason Edwards because I think his score, particularly last night, was a real big difference between the two sides.
Who'd you go for, Matt, sorry?
Jason Edwards.
Okay. Oh, right, okay, so 2 votes.
Two for Jason.
What about you?
He doesn't listen, does he?
Oh, so you did as well?
Yeah.
No, I said Jonas Jepperson.
Oh, right, okay.
Well. Okay.
Okay, so how are we doing in the...
Well, Elliot was the big winner last week. He scored the top scoring with 10 points. There's me at the bottom, just 4.
Bringing up the... You was so high at one point.
I know, yeah, I'm dropping like
Look at me.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Top presenter.
There's something wrong in the world.
Well,
something wrong.
Dead level.
Top guesser.
Yeah. Oh, is that in alphabetical order?
Yes,
Is that only in alphabetical order? Okay.
Right, okay.
I didn't do particularly well last week.
Okay, so that's the results. So we will now bring the table up. So we've still got a clear leader.
Well done, Andrew Garner.
72 points.
Brian Buck, second, 66.
Yep.
Nick Skippy Matthews on 66. And Elliot Hunt on 64.
Me and Chris are just inseparable at the moment.
Yeah.
Keep thinking you're going to go into the next corner and tangle machines, aren't you? And both come off, so.
We're heading towards the... you're even close
Tangle
to the
machines
relegation
and push him into the fence.
Yeah, I think we need relegation.
Yeah. And the ominous sign there of Simon now up into 5th place, so beginning to...
creeping up, isn't he?
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Did you just call him a creep?
Sorry, creep in up.
Okay. Right, shall we...
Only 4 exact scores right, though, this season. Obviously, Andrew's got 9, so... Right, so...
You better get giving.
Let's go. I believe this is down to...
Don't say me.
I wasn't going to, but I will now. It's down to Chris.
Okay, so your first one is in the Championship tomorrow night, Oxford against Glasgow.
Oh, that easy one. I'll go for Oxford by 4.
Glasgow by 2.
Glasgow by 6. I'll go on that one. Okay, second leg of the Knockout Cup semi-final. All to do for Sheffield. They've got to pull that 18-point deficit back against the Leicester Lions. That's on Thursday, Sheffield-Leicester.
Down to me, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Sheffield by 16.
I thought you were going to go for the 18 then. And try
I thought about it.
I'm going to go for Sheffield by 12.
Sheffield by 10.
Okay, so we've all got Leicester to go through to the final. Next up is Bellevue against the in-form Birmingham Brummies.
That's up to you, Matt.
Yeah, can they get the hat-trick? I don't think they will. It's probably not the place you want to be going to for the hat-trick. I'm going to go for Bellevue by 14.
No, they're going to have probably going to have Brady Curtis back again, and we're probably going to be going rider replacements again.
I'm going to go for Bellevue by 14, which is probably a little bit generous, but Matty Zagar certainly will do well there. You know, he's obviously
he didn't do last time.
Didn't do last time, no, but he's Bellevue by 14. I'll say.
I'll go Bellevue by 10.
Oh well, let's split the difference and say Bellevue by 12.
You'd probably take that, wouldn't you? To be fair,
absolutely would. Yeah.
Okay. Ipswich against Kings Lynn is the other semi-final. That's on Thursday. So Kings Lynn 6 points up from the first leg on Monday. So
yeah, I mean Ippo have stuttered quite a bit, haven't they?
Injuries again.
Yeah,
coming back to them, isn't there? So
it's up to Chris. Ipswich versus Kings Lynn.
I'll go Kings Lynn by 6.
It's a big call,
isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, I thought it was myself.
Ipswich by 12.
Ipswich by 10, I'll say. Okay. On Friday, Edinburgh against Oxford in the Championship.
Edinburgh versus Oxford. Let's say Edinburgh by 10.
Edinburgh have been a bit up and down, haven't they, this season?
But so have
Oxford, yeah.
I'll
go for Edinburgh by 4.
Edinburgh by 12.
Okay, Glasgow against Poole is the next one on Friday.
That's up to you. That's how to work it out.
I'm going to go for Glasgow by 14. That one.
Interesting.
They haven't been great over there, I don't think, Paul, this season.
Glasgow by 8.
I mean, never write off Paul.
No.
So Paul to lose by 10.
Yeah. And then sign Greg Hancock for the
don't bring that wound up.
Okay, Scunthorpe against Berwick is the next one. That's also in the Championship on Friday.
Up to you, Chris.
Scunthorpe by 12.
Do you know what? I'm going to say the same.
Scunthorpe by 16. Okay, next up we go into Saturday's action. Workington against Poole.
And that's up to me, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it once, don't I? Draw.
I'll go for Poole by 8.
I'll go for Workington by 4.
Well, big difference. That's where we're going to see the difference.
It's not. They haven't done as well this season if they were. It's been a bit of a struggle.
I've had a premonition.
Yeah.
What are we up to?
We are next up to Berwick. They've got Scunthorpe in the return match on Saturday in the Championship.
That's up for you.
Berwick by 4.
Berwick by 10.
Berwick by 6.
Okay. Next up on Saturday is Plymouth against Redcar in the Championship as well.
That's up to you, Chris.
Plymouth by 6.
Plymouth by 8.
I'll go Redcar by 4.
Doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
But they did beat Poole, so...
Kings Lynn against Birmingham is the next one on Monday night.
Where that has to come to me, doesn't it?
Maybe 3 in a row. Would it be 3 in a row?
If they win at Bellevue, it would be 4 in a row.
Oh, 4 in a row.
Yeah.
But I am actually going to go for a Birmingham win by 2 points.
You okay?
No.
1 win, 2 wins.
2 wins, there you go. There you go. Let me just say this, we can beat Leicester, who I think are a much better team than Kings Lynn. I think we can beat Kings Lynn, particularly at Leicester's place.
Sorry.
I'm going to go for Kings Lynn by 6.
I'll go Kings Lynn by 8.
Okay. And finally, in the Premiership, Leicester against Sheffield. So the two sides meeting again for the third time in a week.
Sort of goes back to what somebody was saying earlier about meeting teams over and over and over again. It's
Is it my go?
a bit samey. Yep.
Leicester.
No, sorry, no, it's not your go. It's Matt's go. I do beg your pardon.
Sheffield are going to be up for that one, aren't they? They're going to be desperate to get revenge for that one. But I'm going to go for Leicester to win by 6.
I'll change mine. Leicester by 8.
Leicester by 10.
Okay, and that's it. So keep posting your score lines, and obviously we'll keep the table updated.
Excellent. We'll read that one.
Well, we should. There's a comment beforehand, isn't it? That's replied to.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah,
about Sheffield. There you go. So
the sneeze didn't really happen.
Not on live.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that. Come say hello to Phil Taylor and myself on second bench. That's Nick Skippy Matthews.
Have we read?
Craig Smith says, well, no, we haven't. It's sort of in reply to other things that we said. Are the Bates getting out of Sheffield before they're forced out as the stadium's under new ownership and they've kicked the stocks out already? I really hope not, but there'll be another club getting twitchy, I'm sure.
I've heard of all sorts of rumours doing the rounds about Sheffield.
Go down to, there was a little bit of...
comments. There was a response to it, wasn't
there?
Yeah.
You've gone, there you go. Apparently, Paul Ward says that the only reason there is no stocks at Owlerton is that the old Speedway training track at the rear of the stadium is built on with solar panels, so there's no room for the stock cars to park, so not viable.
Not going to be a problem for the Speedo because you've only got the pits there, so... Yeah, that's a good point Pete Clark's made about next Monday. Kings Lynn have got a GP rider at reserve. That's where Kings Lynn are going to be having an advantage because they're always going to have at least one strong rider at reserve. Chris Harris isn't doing quite so well now. He's in the main body of the team, so his form for Glasgow has been very good, but it's not been quite so good for Kings Lynn.
Okay, so this week's I can declare this week's rider of the week is Edwards then.
Well done, Jason.
Yep.
How are we as far as the totting up over the year?
I'm doing it month by month at the moment. Okay. So yeah.
Okay.
We're only in the second month. I've forgotten who was last month now. Did I say Dan?
Was it Dan Thompson?
Yeah, Dan Thompson.
Yep. Let's quickly have a look at the standings in the GP then after the thriller in Prague. So Bartosz Smalzik 53, Brady Kurtz 45, Jack Holder 42, Andrei Lebedev's 41. I wanted to have a little discussion about him. Freddie Lindgren 40, Dan Bewley 34, Dominic Cabrera 27, Robert Lambert 27, Anders Thompson 24, and Max Frick rounds out the top 10 on 22. But he's probably been the one revelation of the Grand Prix series, I think, has been Andrei Lebedev's, who's done really well, I think. Was very emotional after his third place in the first Grand Prix in Gorican. I don't know whether you saw it there. Really was an emotional interview that he gave, and he's another one. I think he has ridden at Bellevue, and I think he did pretty well there in the Speedway Nation. So
what I'm hearing you say is we should sign him. That's what I'm hearing you say.
I wouldn't be surprised if a British promoter takes a punt at him. It's whether he can fit in the schedule, I suppose, but. He's certainly a rider. I think he's always been a capable rider, but he's getting into the Grand Prix and doing well last season seems to have given him a real lift, and he's carrying that into this season. I mean, he's only early days, but he's very much in the hunt for, well, potentially the championship. He's only 12 points behind Smarslick at the moment, so I don't think he will win the world championship, but.
No, I mean, but then it's possibly only who. Here's an interesting question, because we've started the show with basically agreeing that, well, world champion's going to be Bartek Smarslick.
Yeah.
What happens if he gets injured? Who's going to be the world champion if he doesn't? All of a sudden, that's a very wide open question, isn't it?
Well, Brady Kurt's second, and of course he's going to have effectively 2 home Grand Prix coming up next weekend. So
as is Dan Bewley.
Yep. So, Dan
Bewley needs to get a good result, doesn't he? The next 2, he needs to use that.
Robert Lambert as well. Robert Lambert's had a poor season by you look at the standards he set last season, finishing runner-up, and he's down in 8th at the moment. So as things stand, he's not guaranteed a place in next year's series. Although I think there's no doubt if he does finish outside the top 8, he would get a pick for next year. But he was really, really poor in Prague on Saturday.
Not his sort of track, maybe.
Not his sort of track. He'll get a bit of confidence from the fact that he won the British final, of course, at Bellevue. So
Simon Corbett says Lingen Wooden. I mean, he's started this year much better than he did last year.
He's sort of got better. He's got better. Obviously, he rode much better on Saturday, and again another one who flies around Bellevue. So
absolutely, I think it must be time.
Someone's
for us.
dropping a hint.
Yes. Are we? Have we got
Last
a show
orders,
next week?
please.
Have we got a show next week?
No,
we need to get
no show next week. I'm on holiday for 10 days, so probably the week after either.
Okay, so we'll see you when Birmingham are at the top of the league. You take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your seat.
Hey, it's Mark Marin from WTF, here to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I'm sure the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because you chose it. Well, choose Progressive's Name Your Price tool, and you could find insurance options that fit your budget, so you can pick the best one for your situation. Who doesn't like choice? Try it at Progressive.com. And now, some legal info. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.